What's up, you guys? This is Rob from the Gay Guy Plays, and today we're going to be merging two formats in together just for shits and giggles, to be completely honest with you. So we're going to do a little bit of a rundown. We're going to go and level the Viper Wraith real quick. We'll do a quick comparison and maybe a little bit of a playtest in the end. Listen, I know it's bad. It's not a great weapon in the least bit, but I want to see how, like, not great it is. I actually had the twin Viper Wraith before, and I looked back at it and I was like, I knew it was going to be bad, so I didn't put any forma in this. So I figured that I would go ahead and use a twin Viper Wraith, put some forma in it. I believe this is my third forma, and I wanted to see exactly, you know, if we could make something out of it. I've actually gone ahead and played with it on stream a little bit. Was not impressed, but I want to see if I can be less not impressed. But in addition to that, I wanted to go ahead and bring back another format that we have not jumped into for quite a long time, and there hasn't been any reason for us to jump into it, but the WIBCI. So for those of you guys who have never experienced the WIBCI before, it's actually an acronym for Wouldn't It Be Cool If? And this is in response to the fact that DE is actually going to be doing some pretty radical changes to damage 2.5. So if you guys weren't a part of the dev stream, didn't watch the dev stream or the dev stream rundowns or anything from the dev stream really, one of the big things that they said is that they were actually going to decouple Cora from damage 2.5, rework her a little bit, and give themselves a little bit more time to work on damage 2.5, mainly because of the fact that all of the feedback that they had received kind of made them think a little bit more about what they were doing, and they needed more time in order to change things around. They figured that what they've actually had on offer is just a little bit of tweaking some of these status procs and some of the ways that damage things work. So they figured, you know what, let's say fuck it, decouple the two, give ourselves more time to work on damage 2.5, and do some more radical things. So I figured we'd be going to a Wouldn't It Be Cool If damage 2.5. So I'm gonna go ahead and just jump into some Hydron right now, do a little bit of leveling with our Zephyr. I'll go ahead and show you the Zephyr build real quick because we're here, we might as well. So that's what I'm currently using on Zephyr, who is another topic that we should probably revisit. I'll probably go ahead and repost the old, I don't know if it was a Wouldn't It Be Cool If, but I think it might have been like a rework video for Zephyr, because as you guys know, Zephyr is going to get touched as well. That sounds kind of dirty, but before her potential priming, I'm calling it right now. I think Crass is going to get primed. But anyway, one of the things that I wanted to go ahead and point out for damage 2.5, so the things that we've kind of seen so far is, you know, Slash, of course, whenever Slash procs, it deals 30% of the weapon's base damage, and ticks over time to the enemy, bypassing armor, bypassing shields. You guys pretty much know how it all works already, but we have, the big issue with this is Slash is fantastic. Right? Slash is the thing that a lot of people go to, that a lot of people run to, and I've spoken about it before on my streams, where we've kind of talked about having meaningful options. And right now, there aren't any kind of, like, meaningful options aside from Slash. Like, we've got Slash, but Puncture, you know, has a flat amount of damage it'll reduce, and Impact is just really a stagger. So it's a light CC and a light damage reduction, correct? But what I think that we fail to really think about, and I've said this before, and I said this way back in the day. Remember when I told y'all that I hated statuses, and that the #1 status was dead? And that's kind of what it comes down to when we're talking about Slash and things like that. The reason why Slash is so popular is because Slash gets them to the best status proc ever, which is dead, right? That's the status that we all want for our enemies. So I started thinking about it a little bit. What variations could we have for Puncture that is not currently in the Puncture world? Because they're saying, you know, they're ready to throw all of that out. They want to give us something different, right? So I was thinking in my head, wouldn't it be cool if Puncture procs, anytime anytime you would proc Puncture on an enemy, either they would have punch through, it would grant the weapon innate punch through on that proc, or grant that specific proc finisher damage, right? So instead of like necessarily what do you call this? Instead of necessarily having the armor applied to the puncture proc, instead the puncture proc could actually puncture the armor, right? Because that's kind of like innate. It's like, it's gonna puncture the armor. So why don't we just let it do finisher damage during that puncture proc, which means that it ignores armor or it ignores shields, because that's the whole point of puncture, is to penetrate something. So I'm thinking either punch through, which will help you kind of take on targets, which means, well, even though you don't necessarily get more damage on that specific target, it'll give you more damage on multiple targets, right? Or just have it ignore armor completely. That's at least my proposition for it. Another proposition that I actually heard for puncture procs that I thought was actually really, really interesting was Mogamu had kind of like said, why not, you know, give it a chance to create weak spots on the enemy. And I'm like, that just totally makes sense along the lines of puncture as well, is the fact that puncture punches through things and will create weak spots and things, right? Like Swiss cheese an enemy up, hit him up with a bunch of weak spots. I think that's totally cool. And I mean, if we're gonna say it now, like a lot of the statuses kind of impede on what other Warframes can do anyway, so I mean, you know, you shouldn't feel bad if we get a little bit of puncture love, stealing the show from Banshee's Sonar, right? I mean, and think about it, Banshee Sonar is such an iconic damage dealing thing. Really, one of the things that we love about Banshee is that, you know, is the ability to create these weak spots. It's interactive, you'd still have to work for it, you know, it isn't just blind shooting, you know, you'd have to try to puncture that same spot over and over again in order to deal damage. And, you know, repeated applications could just intensify that weak spot, right? So it's kind of like, I think it's a very beneficial way to look at puncture and something that they could potentially work with. It helps us get to the best status effect, which of course is dead. So that's kind of like my spiel for puncture. You know, we could keep slash either, you know, similar to the way that it works now. Why not? Like bleeding over time, I think that's fantastic. You know, they get shredded and all of a sudden they start bleeding in their armor. It could be a thing, you know, that totally works. So I don't really want to fuck around with Slash too much, you know, maybe just stick with their proposed changes, or, you know, throw out their proposed changes. However they decide to balance it, you know, with the other things, I'm totally fine. But I think the other one that a lot of people were worried about was Impact. I think Impact was definitely something that scared the shit out of people, mainly because of the fact that they did not want ragdolling. And I am all like for the not ragdolling thing, right? I'm like, please don't like toss enemies around left, right, and center. That would like hurt my heart and soul. Mainly because of the fact that it's really disruptive to well, I wouldn't say gameplay, but to the way that you want to play. And I think that we even saw it in the dev stream when they were playing Korra, and they had these crazy like knockaround procs, right? Where they were like throwing enemies around, and you could see her use her whip, right? And dudes were like getting launched, and I'm not 100% sure if that was like a prototype that they were just working with, or maybe there's some weird bugs that were happening with her whip that were launching enemies super far away. But because of the fact that, you know, there's ragdolling, that kind of shows how disruptive the ragdolls can be for Impact, even though it is thematic. But I've actually heard some really cool thoughts about the way that you can kind of change Impact. Which is, of course, you know, you can still keep the stagger. You can keep the stagger and just have it built up. You know how they're like saying, you know, the statuses get more intense the more you layer them. But I was almost thinking you could keep the stagger, but why not have that stagger like open enemies up to melee finishers, right? It's usually just a single target that you're really trying to take on, right? So part of me is kind of like along the lines of, I don't think that stagger would be too bad, but if you layered that stagger over and over and over again, wouldn't it be freaking fantastic if that stagger almost kind of worked like the Zocti's explosion, where like the more you layered it, the longer an enemy would stay disoriented. So literally, impact weapons could just knock around enemies, disorient them, and make them go, oh, what's going on? And have them open to stealth finishers and stealth finisher damage. right? That would be fantastic for secondaries, because then you wouldn't just be limited to the Zocti in order to open enemies up to stealth finishers, and again, it gets enemies closer to the status chance that we want, which is dead. That's the #1 thing. Remember, that's kind of like the whole issue that I had with status to begin with, is that critical, at least at the point in time that we had it, was able to get enemies dead faster than status was. So now it's kind of like changed a little bit, because we have a lot of really great status-based weapons that do well with status. But what do you call this? But the only thing about it is that some of the statuses, of course, don't function as well as other statuses, and that's kind of like one of the little sad bits about it. It's kind of like, well, we've got a great machine here, but there are certain things that are more favored than others, and I mean, what are you gonna do about it, right? So a part of me thinks that that's definitely a cool solution. However, I'm sure that there are other ideas out there when it comes to impact, mainly because of the fact that, you know, really, when I kind of think about impact, the only thing I can think about is disorienting enemies. Now, if there isn't anything else that's thematic about impact, because it's really just smacking. Oh, somebody else had actually mentioned it. I don't remember if you guys kind of recollect when Frost's snow globe, when he would actually push enemies outwards, that it would actually do damage upon when they came in contact with terrain, and it would do like a good chunk of damage. I'm thinking that that might actually be something that would be cool, you know, if they did really want to stay in that ragdoll theme, right? If they really are bent on having a ragdoll. What if that ragdoll would cause the enemy to collide with terrain and deal like large chunks of damage whenever they hit terrain? Because it is literally launching, you know, the strength of something's impact, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the intensity of the impact proc that like hits the enemy that will actually launch them. And that's how it'll base its damage off of, right? So when they come in contact with terrain, or if they come in contact with terrain, they'll be dealt, you know, an X amount of damage, you know, like a really large amount of damage. And I think that would definitely fit in thematically, because that's one of the things that we don't want to like miss out on too. We don't want to just like introduce a status proc that, you know, mechanically works but isn't thematic, right? We still want to have the cool effect in there. And or how about this? I mean, this just makes way more sense. What if impact was the one that actually gave us damage reduction? Because if you think about it legitimately, disorienting an enemy with impact should be the thing that, you know, makes them hit you less, or grants them like less accuracy on their hits because they're disoriented. I mean, it doesn't kind of fuel the whole, you know, my whole theory of, you know, the best status is dead, but that makes more sense than puncture making an enemy, making an enemy less powerful. Because puncture by its nature should penetrate armor, or have some sort of armor penetration built into it. I don't understand why the choice for it was to reduce damage, right? It was like, why would an enemy become weakened from being punctured? I mean, maybe like multiple puncture wounds would make it so that the enemy wouldn't be able to hit you as hard, but still, at the very end of the day, they're getting punctured. It should deal with armor. It should deal with armor in some way, shape, or form, right? That just makes way more sense. But impact, I think, if they decided, you know, maybe not to go with all of the things that we had mentioned about being disoriented and the stuns and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, what if it was like an initial stagger, and then for the rest of the 6 seconds, it was some form of weakness. So you get a little bit of CC, and on top of the CC, you get a little bit of damage reduction on top of that. So that way it'll be like extra juicy, right? It's not just like, oh, they're CC'd and that's it, right? It's they're CC'd, and after they're CC'd, they're going to be dealing less damage to you. Or maybe you could make it impact, you know, when you impact an enemy, it stuns them, and then when you get like the highest version of impact, it stuns them, but it also disarms them. right? Because, you know, maybe you hit them so hard that it makes them lose their weapon, if we're talking about, like, defensive. So that way we have two ways. We have slash that deals with most enemy, fleshy enemy types. We have puncture that will be great against armored enemy types, and then we have impact, which will be the more defensive type. So you can actually make that defensive choice, because I know that some people, you know, DE wants to have a variety of things available to us, so why not give us that choice of having the defensive one? Personally, I like the disorients and opening up melee finishers, especially for damage 2.5 with some glaive action or some thrown weapon action. Alright, so you've heard me rant about damage 2.5. I've given you my ideas. Let me know, wouldn't it be cool if damage 2.5 did X, Y, and Z? Let me know what your opinions are on the different status procs, because definitely they're kind of at this point right now where they're willing to make radical changes. So this is the greatest time to give your feedback, your constructive feedback. Because here's the thing, we want to give feedback. We don't want to talk shit. we're here to help. We're not here to drag people. We're not here to drag people through the mud for, you know, developing the game. We'll drag them through the mud for shitty clickbait titles. We'll do that though. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the comparison to the Viper. So as you can see here, the Viper is actually such an old weapon that I don't have it anymore. And the reason I don't have it anymore is I used it to construct the twin Vipers. So I don't have a single Viper, but as you can see here, the Viper Wraith improves. It looks like it improves in damage. It might not improve in damage, actually. Hold on, let me do the damage calculations real fast, because I'm pretty sure. Main point. This is me not being ready. I couldn't remember. 1.8 equals 18. Did it get a damage boost? I feel like it looks like it might have gotten like a couple point damage boost. Let's see. 4.8. Yeah, it actually got a teensy tiny damage boost when it comes down to it, because legitimately it's got a 2-point damage boost. And as you can see, its damage has been shifted more into impact and a little bit away from slash. It's got more status, only 4% more status. It's got a faster reload speed, which, to be honest with you, kind of makes the weapon for me. I love the fast reload speed. Of course, it's just a 0.8 as compared to a 1.1. A 1.1 is fast anyway. We get more in the magazine. It's got a higher critical chance at 18 and a higher critical multiplier, which definitely helps a lot. And my favorite thing about this weapon is the accuracy of it. So big thumbs up to that. And the way it compares to the Twin Viper's Wraith, to be honest with you, like, Twin Viper's Wraith kind of blows it out of the water. The only real difference between this is it's got more accuracy than the Twin Vipers, and it's got a faster reload speed. That's really the only place you're winning. Otherwise, these two are pretty much identical. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what we can do with the build real quick. So we've got 12 spot open, which is still not enough. Ooh, it makes me so angry. It makes me so angry because I really don't want to, have to go. Actually, hold on. Can we do this? Will this help? Will this help? Oh my god, it works. Okay, good. We're good. I don't have to do anything else. So this is kind of what we're working with right now. We're going to go ahead and jump into the simulacrum real quick to see if it's bad, but we've got a full build in it, so exactly how bad. Now, I was doing this with actually one mod less, and I had a bit less status because I wasn't using maxed mods on stream. We tried. We tried to make it work. We really did. I actually lowered down the enemy, what do you call this? The enemy level down to 100, which is probably what we'll do again because we have to be realistic. It's not a great weapon. But a part of it is kind of like, I thought about it a little bit earlier too, and I was like, why did y'all make this? Why did you make, what was the point of this weapon aside from, you know, mastery fodder? You know, I was like, I don't remember there being, there wasn't like some kind of syndicate mod that I missed on this. Is there? And please, right now in the comments section, I mean, let me know if there's something. You know what? I'm gonna look for it real quick because I don't think there should not be a syndicate mod for this. Off of the top of my head, I cannot remember one in any way, shape, or form. I know that there was one for the, oh my god, there was what, it's like the Blessed Wind or Blessed Purity or something like that, but it was for the other, it was for the Furist, the Afurist. So I don't think that this one's got any one of those. I'm pretty sure. Yep. Okay. We're just double, triple checking. You know, we gotta make sure shit's right, shit's tight. And let's go ahead and bring out a level 100 Billy, just because, you know, toss on some invincibility real quick too, and we'll see how bad it is. We'll see exactly how bad this could possibly be. Let's jump on in. Let's see how you perform. Okay. Come on. See, that reload speed is always nice, and see how you can just unload right into his face? Oh, is this not... Well, considering the fact that I'm almost out of ammo, it's pretty bad. I mean, it's not... It killed him real fast. I only have 71 ammo left out of a 210 magazine, you know? I mean, in total, it's 230, and I mean, yeah, I pretty much used like all of my ammunition, and it's only a level 100. It works well on the star chart. How about that? It works well on the star chart. So for those of you who don't know, you can pick this up from Barrow Katir to work out your mastery rank, which is basically the only thing it's really good for. But it did kind of make me go ahead and take a look at the Wraith model again, which, you know what, I actually managed to color kind of halfway decently. I was like, you know, the new coloring on the Wraiths are not bad, so that's a plus for this. Listen, I'm looking at the bright side. It's mastery rank. It's, you know, it's reintroduced me to like coloring some Wraiths. It's there. Hashtag old man, hashtag Warframe retirement. Hey, listen, I gotta stay on top of my retirement, right? I gotta make sure that it's over and done with. So what I want you guys to go ahead and do is leave me your WIBCIs for damage 2.5 in the comments below. Let me know if you found a use for the Viper Wraith aside from mastery fodder. I mean, you tell me, because I don't think there are blueprints for the twin Viper Wraiths that like include this in it. None of that. But regardless, that about does it for me. And as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.